the company sold their curriculum to Justin's learning into IBM, and I've spent the last 9 years with Pearson in our office here.
Pearson, the publisher?
Okay. Doing online mobile learning. Ran a mobile learning group for the higher ed.
Right. Okay. It may be in that space. I worked for a medical company that did educational materials. They were bought by Elsevier a few years ago, after my tenure there. But yeah, in those days, we did a lot with the learning space.
Just look very familiar.
I do get that from time to time. So it's usually a question of, is it a professional setting or a personal setting? Because if it's a personal setting, I usually have to apologize for doing something. Yeah, that is worth apologizing for.
We'll be going in about 5 minutes, just let some more people trickle in.
Okay.
Do you know Christina Goldman?
No.
She works she was working as a project manager, then she was a product manager, and she switched jobs. I don't even know the name of the company she's with. I have to get on LinkedIn to find out, but now she's worked herself up to a VP position.
Nice.
And this is after being a stay-at-home mom and not working for over 10 years. And in the last 3 years, she's just shot up to the ladder.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good for her. I admire her. I was surprised, but I admire her for it.
Some people have the actual skill and talent to climb the ladder. Other people, as Dilbert says, rise to a level of incompetence. On the ladder. Yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks for coming in today.
Sure. Yeah, I owe Joel a favor. He had blackmail evidence. So it doesn't matter why, really.
He's like that.
He actually is. So, he's in price today. Did I hear that?
Yeah.
I'm looking at these windows up here and I'm thinking to myself, I hope there's some sort of a barrier between that and the street, because otherwise, I swear, if sometime during the presentation, somebody's going to come sit on those, and I won't be able to avoid watching it.
Oh, I'm sure it's happened.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So do you have these meetups once a week, or how does it work? Because I'm going to get first time in meetups.
Yeah, so I'll go over the group and sort of all the
Okay,
things
cool.
that we do. We have a variety of different events every week, every month, all over different sort of different topics.
Awesome.
So I'll tell you about them.
Sounds good.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys are here with, are involved in startups? Okay.
Is that where I met you? Boom Startup?
Boom Startup, yeah. Very familiar with them.
You might have given a presentation or attended a presentation.
I've been to a couple of events. I haven't done much in the mentoring way with them. I've spent time with Foundry, and then there's another incubator down south that I spent time with a few years ago. So, but I know of Boom Startup. They've got quite a bit of traction.
Yeah, they're doing well. Hope they're EdTech, it's a new track for them. Hope that stays strong. Because that's what I do.
Right. Well, I think that's partially on you too, isn't it?
I did well. I did my job. I mentored 3 companies and invested in one of them and maintained my working relationship with that one. So.
Good deal.
Yeah, they've got a good product. And
Yeah.
Hey everyone, so thank you so much for coming. My name is Mo. I'm a board member of the Salt Lake Circle. We're a business networking group here in Utah with over 3,000 members. As you asked, we do a variety of events. And so this Lunch and Learn event is held every Thursday at 12 o'clock right here, featuring a wide variety of speakers. Additional events that we do, I believe the second or third Tuesday of every month, we hold a marquee event at the 18th floor of the Zions Bank Building. If you go to our website, slcircle.com, you can get more information about that. The next event is this upcoming Tuesday, the 21st. That features M. Bridget Cook Birch and Jen Foster, and the topic there is how to write and publish your book. And so that'll be real world experience from people who have done it. There'll be a group of panel members that have also published and written books, and it'll essentially take you through all the steps from conceiving an idea, writing the book, getting published, and getting actually marketing speed behind that to actually sell copies of it. And so every month those events are different. We have topics that range all the way from marketing to publishing a book to starting a business. So those are pretty highly attended events once a month. Other than that, every Thursday morning at 7:45 a.m., we do have a coffee and connections event at Cafe Neo's Coffee House. That's a casual breakfast meeting with a lot of different people, professionals and business people from Salt Lake that come. That's every Thursday morning at 7:45. The third Friday of every month, we have a beer crawl that's at a different bar, brewery every month. And so all the events are attended by a wide variety of people. So it's a good group. I've been a part of it for about 3 years now. Met a lot of people. I own a startup as well. It's really helped me. Today we have Jonathan House here. Jonathan is going to be talking about Agile vacation planning. Jonathan is an Agile Evangelist at Myriad Genetics and an organizer of the acclaimed Agile Roots conference in Salt Lake City. He's worked in software businesses for a very, very long time, and he really focuses on building small, high-performing software teams that can really outperform larger teams to getting products to market. He's also focused on rebuilding underperforming teams to deliver software products quickly and reliably, and finally creating new business opportunities by maximizing the ability for teams to deliver a working software product quickly and applying his cross-industry experience. He's really helped a lot of new employers open up new revenue opportunities. So welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, wow, applause already. You might want to hold that to the end just to be on the safe side. I realize that's a lot to live up to. I hope someday I'll be able to actually say that I really did all those things, as opposed to just, no, I'm kidding. As the introduction said, I am an Agile Evangelist. I've been doing software development since I was 14 years old, so I know the business pretty well. Still an active coder, even though I've gotten into the management levels of things, so don't hold that against me. And Agile really is my realization of you can only go so far with the actual, the bits. And along the course of doing that, I realized that the things that we do to improve our software development actually help us improve other business processes as well. It's really all about delivering value when you get right down to it, or a given definition of value. And speaking of delivering value, today, this presentation is probably not going to deliver any value whatsoever, except maybe some entertainment. What I'm going to be talking about is one that Joel proposed, and it sounded fun. It was, I recently had a special vacation event, and he said, as we were talking about it, he said, you really planned this and executed it in an agile manner, didn't you? And I said, well, yeah, I kind of do that. And he said, you should talk about that. And I thought, great, this ought to be entertaining. So anyways, you're now the victims of this. So it's Joel's fault if you're the one to blame him. So I give you Agile vacation planning, or lean startup meets the dreaded 5-0.
Why is it dreaded?
Dreaded.
Why?
Well, we'll get to that. I mean, it's that's kind of the thing. It's when you hit that number, so many things to look forward to, like colonoscopies, that everybody's excited about that. So we touched on this briefly. I know a little bit about Agile. I think I'm an expert. It's yet to be determined if I actually know what I'm talking about. You'll have to find out for yourselves. I work at Myriad Genetics, and I consider myself a semi-pro adventurer. I've actually been paid to do a couple of adventure things, so of course I'm going to milk that for all it's worth. But I do like to get out and about, and I've been blamed accused of being an adrenaline junkie more than once. So before we get into the heart of this, terminology, agile, lean, do we know what those things actually mean? So I'm going to turn that over to you. What is agile? When I say agile, what does that mean? Anybody?
Adapt to circumstances.
Okay, adapt to circumstances. Okay. What does it mean when it pertains to business?
Reactive.
Reactive, okay, reacting to change.
Mhm.
Good, what else?
Flexible.
Flexible? What, flexible in this? No, we can't do that.
That's yoga.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So Agile, so we got an idea what Agile is. You know, Agile primarily comes from the software world. We'll talk about that more in a minute. How about Lean? We're talking about Lean startup specifically. What is that?
Efficiency.
Efficiency? Okay. What else?
Light.
Light? Light as in really,
Not a lot of
really
fluff.
bright, or
Not a lot of fluff. Just
Okay.
what you need.
Okay.
Bare bones.
what you need, the bare bones. Okay. Anybody a Lean startup practitioner here? Really? Yes. Did you raise? Okay. Excellent. All right. So you're gonna test. You're gonna be able to test me and see whether or not I get the terminology right as we go on. Okay. So these are ways of really achieving a business goal. Okay. They're coming from different perspectives. There's a history, as you can imagine, to these things. I'm not going to go through the details of this chart, but the point that I want to make is that Lean and Agile, we're really, when we talk about those things, they're used somewhat interchangeably. We're really talking about the same thing as long as you understand the context. Lean comes from the world of manufacturing, okay? And if you look at the lineage here, back in the 40s, the first signs of this were the practice of Kanbans in Japan as they operate a business. I'm not going to give you the details. Go look it up. It's actually kind of entertaining. That along with some writing that Deming did in the 50s, came out, turned into the evolution of the Toyota production system, which was considered to be the forerunner of Lean manufacturing. On the Agile side, Deming actually also had influence on the thought leaders over there. In the 80s and 90s, you had the development of all the individual Agile methodologies here in software nowadays, Scrum, XP, TDD, all those. They started showing up at that point. Around 2001, they came up with a label for it, and that is Agile. So that's the world of Agile. And then they started, looking at each other across the aisle here and said, hey, you guys have some good ideas. So that's where we started, blending in again. We came up with a Lean software development methodology. Agile started rolling out to the enterprise outside of software, and you started having the application of the Lean principles into Lean Startup, which is what we get there today. So when we talk about Agile and Lean, we're really talking about things on an interchangeable level, but you have to be careful of the context because it makes a big difference. Lean manufacturing is not the same thing as a Lean startup. They pay attention to different things, they have different processes. Same thing is true for software. Agile applies to software. It also is starting to get outside of the development room. But again, you have to understand where the terminology and the context are coming from. Okay, but there's a history, they cross over. So I kind of am going to use them interchangeably as we talk today. So getting to the point. Really, the point here is whenever you talk about Agile, you're talking about the delivery of business value. And the subtitle of that is deliver early, deliver often. When you talk about Lean Startup, you're delivering your desired product faster, okay? So we know that as soon as we come up with a software system or a business idea, we get it right the first time, right? Yes?
No.
No? Really? Well, there goes my consulting career. No, we don't. We have to find out where we're wrong. We have to find out where our mistakes are. We have to find out what the customer really wants. And we find that out by delivering quickly and delivering often. So that's where these two things really come together. That's the guiding or the binding principle between them. Deliver early, deliver often, deliver value. So meet the customer in this case. Customer is this 50-year-old gentleman who sometimes likes to do adventurous things. That's me falling out of an airplane over at Lake Havasu. And I wanted to have the opportunity to have, something beyond just a birthday. I didn't want a birthday, I wanted more of an event. So what my deliverable was, or my requirement, or the beginning of my requirement was, it's 50. Okay? I'm turning 50 years old. I need to, put a bookmark in this, so to speak, right? Otherwise, a day, well, we get into the requirements in just a minute. So we get into the detailed requirements. When I sat down and started thinking about this, I realized, okay, by the way, Birthday Palooza is the name of this event. Actually, that's what it was on Facebook events and so forth. So now we're going to be talking about Birthday Palooza. A single day, not nearly long enough for this celebration of life. and a lack of, or, poor decision making. So I decided to need more time. My second requirement was I need to have a high ratio of epic moments to mundane moments. The third requirement is planning. Yeah, no, don't do planning. And the fourth requirement, and this one is, it's down on the list, but it's actually pretty important. I had to have at least a 50% chance of surviving the event itself, or events. So those are my requirements coming in. So now I know who the customer is. Now I know what the requirements are. Now I can get into applying lean principles or lean startup principles to actually figuring out what I needed to do. If you've seen lean before, you've seen this cycle, or you've something similar to this. How many of you have seen this before? Okay. There's another version of this that actually puts these there's deliverables or things that are coming in between these. But really, this is the heart of it. This is the the noun or the verb phrases, the things that you're doing. You're going to build something. You're going to put it in front of your customer, measure the result, and you're going to learn from that. And that learning goes into the next cycle. And that's what, again, Agile is all about this. Lean is all about this. This happens to be a lean startup diagram, but the same thing applies to Agile. You see this circle in the heart of it all. And it's an iterative, cyclical process. So when we apply this process to vacation planning, or the dreaded 5-0, we have to first build something, right? So the building process. I grabbed a map of the state of Utah. And on that map, I wanted to find out what are the really cool, interesting landmarks that I haven't seen yet that I want to go see. We're talking about slot canyons. We're talking about viewpoints. We're talking about waterfalls. But anything out there that's really cool that I wanted to go and see. We have 5 national parks within 5 hours driving distance. It's amazing. So I needed to get out and see some things. I heard from friends that there might be an opportunity to fall out of hot air balloons and helicopters. That sounds like fun.
Not just taking them, but falling out.
Oh, no, yeah, taking them, that's too mundane. And then I got a hold of my Vegas friends and I said, hey, I'm going to be traveling around the state. I know I'm going to be doing a southern leg of the trip. I might as well hit Vegas, right? So I got a hold of my Vegas friends and I said, hey, I'm going to be coming down, fair warning, right? What do you got for me? So this is how I built my birthday palooza event.
I have one quick question. The hot air balloons and the helicopter and the airplane you jumped out of, they were all functioning properly, weren't they?
That really wasn't my concern, but yes, in this case they were.
And you jumped out anyway of a perfectly good.
Well, okay, so consider this. When you talk about a perfectly good aircraft, whether it's a plane, a balloon, a helicopter, if you can get out while it's flying, is it perfectly good? So anyways, back to our cycle, that's the build process. Okay, so I built my first iteration of my event, my birthday palooza, if you will. Then I did some measuring. First of all, I had to measure the distance and time required to reach all those cool things in the state I wanted to see and experience. I carefully timed how long it took for the organizers of the hot air and helicopter activity to respond to me when I had questions. And I tracked in great detail the responses that I received from my Vegas friends about possibly coming down there and seeing them. And finally, I counted the number of full event RSVP responses. How many people said, yep, I'm coming the whole week, I'm there, okay? And now that I've got things that I measured, I can learn from these, right? So let's see what I learned. I learned the bitter reality of 422, 1/2, 1/4. And that reality is that in order for me to hit all the destinations I want to hit, I would have to travel 40 miles driving, 22 miles by foot, a 1/2 mile of vertical climbing up or down, and a 1/4 mile of swimming every day to cover all the things that I want to actually see. Probably a little too much. Now we're talking about estimation accuracy and whether or not I could actually do these things. It seemed like it might be a little much. So I had to pare down the planned destinations. I learned that the contact frequency to my hot air helicopter friends was in direct inverse proportion to my ability to get a response from them. The more often that I contacted them, the less likely they were to respond. I didn't know this. This is actually new learning. I think when I hit about 20 times an hour on my frequency of contact, that's when I really, this lesson really hit home. I learned that there are 4 categories of the responses from my friends in Vegas. The first category was, yeah, we're going to be out of town. Out of town, yeah, sorry, we can't make it. We're going to be out of town. The second category response was, I know I'm going to regret this, but yeah, I'm around. Let's do something. Third category was, you do remember the restraining order, right? And the fourth category was, who is this? Why are you contacting me? And I learned that just-in-time planning, birthday palooza right before it happens, translates to a lot of RSVP responses of, yeah, you do know we have jobs, right? We're not going to be able to make it for a week at a time. So I took all this learning and I applied it to the next iteration of developing my product of Birthday Palooza. So what happened? This is what I delivered, okay? Now, obviously, you can do multiple iterations in this, but I was starting. This is like the day that it was starting, so I had to, I had to deliver something, right? So what I learned was, first of all, I delivered an itinerary, okay? And inside of that itinerary, I learned that I needed to have a few concrete, time-sensitive activities. There are certain things that I had to be at certain times, otherwise I couldn't do them. 2 of the key ones were Calf Creek Falls. How many of you ever heard of Calf Creek Falls? 1, 2. Look it up. Go see it. Amazing. One of my first concrete deliverables was I had to be at Calf Creek Falls at midnight on Wednesday of the week I was traveling because it was a full moon. And seeing Calf Creek Falls under full moon is unbelievable. It's actually one of the top 10 moments of my life, so I highly recommend it. The second one was that I was going to get a race driving lesson down in Vegas, and I had to be there for that on time too. Otherwise, they don't let you just show up whenever you want and get into a sports car. I don't know why, but that seems to be their pattern. I also had to identify the required travel efforts, how much time I would have to spend, and when I would have to travel between specific destinations. And I came up with the idea of invitation windows, where I would say to my friends, hey, I know you can't make it for the whole week, but if you're around here at this time, you could join in for this part. And it turned out that actually worked out really well. I had different people showing up at different times to join me for certain specific activities. So I actually applied the learning, and not just sarcastically, but actually put these things into play, and it turns out that it actually added to this Birthday Palooza experience. So that's really the big picture. Now, when you actually get into these things in practice, that circle that we saw before, that build, measure, learn, that happens both on a macro level and also on a micro level. So I'm going through that cycle every day as I go through this activity too. I'm going to go through now the days, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, like how did I build the day and so forth. I'm just going to go to the key learnings of those days, and hopefully they'll be, well, if not knowledgeable, entertaining at least. So let's go look and see what happened. Day 1, jumping out of things that aren't airplanes. Okay, I do spend a lot of time jumping out of airplanes. I'm a licensed skydiver. I've jumped 380 times so far, and I still have failed to die completely. So, at least I'm good enough to not kill myself.
Did you learn in the service?
What's that?
Did you learn in the
I did not actually. I was in the service, and I joined a division that was called the 101st Airborne. But it turns out the 101st Airborne doesn't actually jump out of planes anymore, or at least not when I was there. Funny side story about that. I won't do that now. So some of my key learnings of day 1 activities. Number 1 is that if you're in a hot air balloon and you're the heaviest guy in the hot air balloon, and they're trying to get altitude, you're going to be the first one out of the air balloon, a hot air balloon. Okay. So I had to get out early because the pilot was literally screaming at me going, we're too heavy, somebody get out. And I'm like, well, I'm the big guy here, so I'm gonna take the hit for the team. So I had to jump out early. I had other plans, but I had to adjust as I went. The second thing I learned is that it is really, really cold at about 3,000 feet above the ground in Park City in mid-March. Really cold. My hands were not working during that picture, although my face was. And I learned that no matter how stupid of a thing you're doing, you will always be able to find friends that are willing to watch you do it. So that's key learning from day 1, or day 1, part 1. Day 1, part 2, birthday party. I learned that if you set up a photo booth so your friends can live vicariously through you, they don't take it very seriously. So my friends enjoying, becoming skydivers, allegedly. Okay, day 2, Moab. Okay, So day one had the party, day two headed out from Moab. I learned that I just can't take a serious picture to save my life. Okay, I learned that the Canyonlands National Park is a fantastic place to chill and have a great view. I learned a very important lesson about railroad tracks, and that is that before you listen for the train coming, you should probably look to see if there's a train coming. I put my ear in the track, and I'm like, oh shit, the train's right there. And I learned that there are just some people you cannot take out in public safely. Okay, and I would apply that to all three of the people now.
Is that Clint Osborne?
What's that?
Is that Clint Osborne?
No,
it's not. Dang.
Which one are you thinking?
The bottom on the far right?
On the far right?
Totally looks like it.
That's a friend of mine, his name is Brett.
Okay.
Some people here know who Brett is. Day three, Escalante. Okay, now you saw we had one of those travel windows. Okay, now Escalante, there's two key destinations there, plus whatever else we could hit. One was, let's see, it's Coyote Gulch. Anybody ever been to Coyote Gulch? Okay, Coyote Gulch, you've been to Coyote Gulch? Okay, excellent. The second one was Calf Creek Falls, as I mentioned before. The key learning is that, first of all, again, certain people cannot take a serious picture to save their lives. Coyote Gulch is a slot canyon that has some, beautiful landmarks. You can see one of the arches inside the canyon here, but it has two approaches. One of them is a day-long, more or less is backpacking overnighter. You plan for 2 days. You backpack in along a wash, and then it slowly grows into a canyon. Or you can head for this little spot, basically over land. And once you get right to the edge, you have about a 60, 70 degree slope that you have to scramble down. And my key learning there was it was a really stupid idea to make a shortcut just to get there and be able to hit other things at that time. You pay the price by having to scramble down and then back up a 60 to 70 degree slope. May not seem like much, but when you're actually on it, you're going, this is really steep. Okay. Another key learning is that if you have a bottle of celebratory scotch to celebrate your actual birthday and you leave it out where your friends can get it, they will get a hold of it. Okay, that was an important learning lesson for me. I learned that moonrise over the Escalante area is absolutely amazing, and it's really dry there. And I learned that taking pictures of Calf Creek Falls, even under full moon at midnight, is kind of futile, as you can see by my last picture there.
Is that Calf Creek?
Calf Creek.
C-A-L.
Yep, C-A-L, like as in the small cow. Okay, day 4, Zion's National Park. So some very important learnings here. And one of them is actually, I'm going to call this one semi-serious. Angel's Landing is fun, but it's also, that's a scary hike. How many of you ever done Angel's Landing before? Okay. How did you feel when you're on that fin, that sandstone fin going up that little last part? It's kind of exciting, isn't it? You get people coming the other way, and you're like, oh, I'm not letting go of this chain. You let go of that chain? So it gets to be a little entertaining. I've learned that not everybody can handle that level of vertical opportunity, if you will. So we had to adjust our plans when we got to this point because one of my friends, and I won't say which one, decided, well, that's really not for me. So we had to make some adjustments. But again, you do that on the fly when you're agile and or lean, correct? I learned that there are great opportunities for blackmail photos when your friends are overly adventurous. This is my friend Brett right before he was doing a pose on that rock. And you'll notice if you look closely, and you may have to, I'll be happy to send this one for a small fee. But he's basically bent over that rock, and it's just hilarious because it's like, why are you bending over that rock like that? So I have blackmail evidence on him that's going to last for years. And finally, I learned that the deer in Zion National Park really just don't care about us very much. We look at this and they go, what are you going to do? So apparently they're from Brooklyn or something. But they really don't care about us being close proximity to them. Day 5, Vegas. I learned that I should never ever be allowed inside of a very expensive automobile. This is a high-end Lamborghini, and right after I sat in there and started making vrooming noises, they told me to get out. I learned that I really shouldn't own any sports cars at all because I will have my license rapidly revoked because I can't seem to drive slow. I also learned that I'm not that great of a race car driver. In my mind, when I showed up there, I was Mario Andretti. I was ready to go. When I actually got on the track, and I was like, I can't stay on the track, I learned that I'm not such a great race driver after all. I learned that my friend, who is indeed a great race driver, can make this car go sideways on a track faster than I can make that car go straight forward. You ever seen drift racing before? Oh, geez, this guy was amazing at it. I was sitting in the car the whole time going, how are you doing this? And it was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of work, Robert. And I learned that this is really true. I'm not showing you any of the rest of the pictures from Vegas because, yeah, just it was one of those days. So that's my learning from day 5. Day 6, we're jumping. I learned that bunny rabbits actually can jump, even the people, the people-looking ones. I learned that when you strap a bunny rabbit to yourself, it really changes your flying characteristics quite a bit. I learned that even the best laid plans of friends that are doing something that takes a lot of coordination and technical effort don't always go the way that they planned. Although it's quite entertaining when you're watching. That's my key learning from day 6. I also learned that I actually planned the end of Birthday Palooza over Easter weekend, which is why I haven't bat the rabbit on me in the first place. I had forgotten that Easter is coming up as a holiday, so I'm like, where's all my friends? So that was learning for the next round, which is look and see if there's actual holidays during your calendar before you plan your events. And day 7, the most important learning of all from my Agile vacation planning effort was I needed a vacation from my vacation. So that is Agile vacation planning. Okay, thank you for tolerating this presentation. Hopefully you learned something interesting. If nothing else, to not ever go on vacation with me. At this point, any questions? Yes?
You said something about time slots or something for your friends to join up with. What do you mean by that again?
So time slot is basically, I would say, okay, I'm going to be, we're hitting Zions on Thursday, and we'll be there probably around this time. So I just open up a time window.
A couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. As roughly in this meeting time. And then I had to make sure that when I was traveling from Escalante to Zion, that I had to, that's my limitation on the travel. So it allowed me to coordinate with people that were coming. The friend that you saw, this friend here actually joined us down in Zion. So we met him all along the way. Same thing is true for, here obviously, this is my race driver. He's also a friend of mine. So we met during those windows.
How much notice did you give him that you were going to be doing this trip? Just curious.
There's certain things.
Spontaneous, or like you have to plan some months?
It's pretty spontaneous. I mean, he was the first guy I contacted because that was the longest lead time of, hey, can you get me in to do race car driving? Yeah. And then everything else kind of fell out of that. I found out about the hot air and heli balloon jump like 2 weeks before my birthday. And then everything else was like within that last 2-week window.
So the relatedness to business, if you're talking about agile planning and spontaneously planning something,
Right.
Business must go on, so money must come in.
Yes.
And so when you're trying to be agile and lean and maybe look at new revenue opportunities, how do you balance allocation of resources against looking at new ventures versus continuing certain things that are bringing in money?
So that's an excellent question. And I think that you have to look at your organization to have any ability to answer that. First of all, let's take a look at a startup. Okay, what is a startup? As a business entity, is it an established business? No, it's an experiment. Experiment to do what?
Fail sometimes.
Well, that's what happens most of the time. But the experiment is designed to do what? Find you a path to?
New opportunity?
Opportunity, revenue. You're trying to make money, right? This is an experiment to make money. In that context, there are certain things that you do and don't do in comparison to established business, okay? Now, if you take an established business that is small to medium-sized, their pattern is different. And the way that you allocate resources for new development versus, keeping fires burning, that's a different pattern entirely. Get to large companies. Myriad is an example of this. Myriad is a large company. It's publicly traded, 2,000 employees. I forget the revenue is, but it fits the category of a large company. Myriad has to actually do some things culturally differently to be able to innovate. They have to set up a team under a completely different set of rules to be able to kind of reinvent themselves to do the startup thing. That's one of the areas that I've studied a lot. I've done this for Myriad. I've done this for Walmart. I've done this for Wells Fargo Bank, in that you run these innovation teams, like you run a startup within the context of a large company. There's very specific rules about that. But each of them have their own unique environment, and you operate differently. Startups, if you're good at that, great. That's a path to revenue. That's what you're trying to establish. So everything is invention and discovery. Okay? Established companies, you have to figure out what the right allocation is between here's what we're going to do to stay in business and make money. Here's what we're going to do to make sure that we don't become irrelevant as a business. That answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Others?
During your presentation, it made me think of the work that I do as a mentor for startup companies. And one of those things is when you're meeting with the companies trying to find out where there's a good fit between a mentor and a company, I tell them that we don't, if I'm going to be involved, then us as a team won't do anything that isn't agile, including all the activities you're going through now. And you have to do requirements planning, you have to know what you can accomplish, and then you have to break it down, plan it all the way down to you're at the sprint level. And your comment about, you do know we have jobs, don't we? You'd be amazed at how many times I say, okay, I've heard that, okay, these are the things we've got to do. Okay, so we're gonna have a plan and we're gonna allocate time and, you know, how much time can you spend on this? Well, I can't really spend all my time because I have this other thing that I'm working on. Well, then it should be in the requirements planning. You know, even companies that would embrace agile development, software development, don't really understand that a lean agile approach is a great way to start your company.
Right.
Because all the same principles hold true between sprints in development and sprints in the development of the business.
Well, let me take that up a level, because there's a couple of important points in that. One of the things that I see over and over again as being involved in the Agile community is the idea that Agile is somehow a quick fix, or Lean is a quick fix. You can just read a book, you can go to a 3-day training class, and you walk out and you're now an expert. Truth of the matter is that you have to experience in these things, just like anything else. I mean, that's how the world works, right? If you don't know what you're doing, if you haven't experienced it before, you don't know how to respond. So having experience is actually really important. That's why the mentors play such a strong role, because they see things coming that people that haven't been in business before, haven't tried a certain type of business, they don't have any experience with. Okay? And experience is vital, because you save yourself a lot of time and you save yourself a lot of mistakes from that. The second thing is, and this is one of the key principles that's kind of hidden underneath the surface, and that is focus. Okay? If you're doing a startup, how well are you going to do if you're actually working on 5 different startups? You going to deliver any of those? No. Highly unlikely. If you work at a job and you're on a team that is actually allocated to 4 different projects, each one with different customers and different quality assurance people and different managers, how well are you going to do delivering on those 4 projects? Not so hot, right? We're perfect beings when it comes to focus. Okay, it takes time for us to move from one task to another. The more complex the task, and I call software development, for years I've referred to it as, it's all abstract symbol manipulation. You're manipulating things in your mind that have a certain structure, and they have to be, constructed just a certain way. When you have to move from one task to another and you have to change that mental map, you take a huge penalty because you have to rebuild it from scratch. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm sweeping the floor and now I'm, washing dishes. There's a huge difference in where your mind is working and where your mind needs to be at to be effective in those things. Right. So the, expertise, experience, and focus are 2 very important things. Where do you get those at? But specifically experience. How do you get experience in startup world?
Take the action.
What's that?
Take the action.
Take action. Do it. Fail. That's where the fail comes in. A lot of people fail multiple times because they're learning. Failure is learning. The only real failure is that if you do something multiple times, you don't actually learn from it, so that you can apply something different next time. And again, you can see there's kind of a circle of that, isn't there? It's a circle of the process. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So I guess I'm noticing a parallel, kind of similar to that question, is you do realize we have jobs, right? Well, that kind of can go into the corporate or startup world. You can accomplish big things in a short amount of time if you have that focus. But how did you go about convincing these people that they need to be involved? Because a birthday palooza with just yourself isn't that grandiose, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
the more people you can get involved, the better the experience, and the more you can accomplish. Can you talk to that, how you did that here, and then how you apply that to your work in the profession?
Yeah, let me do that by analogy, because the actual techniques that I use to engage others in this versus the techniques you use to engage others in business, they're two very different things, but the principle is the same, and that is you have to generate interest and excitement. Okay, you have to make sure that you've got something that other people want to participate in or want to buy as a product. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, how many of you have been to like a startup weekend where during the course of the weekend you actually sit down and you go through the process miniature of a startup from start to finish? Anybody ever been to one of those? Okay, you have? Anybody else? Okay, when you go through that process, one of the things you learn is whether or not your idea has interest, if people are interested in it. I saw a great lesson where one of the startup weekends I attended, people had preconceived ideas that they brought to the startup. It was this great idea that they wanted to bring it to the startup, and they wanted to make it work. They wanted to get it going. It's one of the things I actually pitched to bring interest into the startup. But when the groups sat down and they started advertising what they had, what idea they had, a lot of these people that brought in these ideas actually said, a lot of the other people in there go, that's not interesting. I'm not going to work on that. So these people with these great ideas from outside could not garner interest. Okay? If you can't generate interest in the form of your friends joining you for activities, in the case of Birthday Palooza, or in the form of getting customers to actually pay for your product, what is that telling you?
They don't see the value of what you have.
Yeah, it's either not viable or you're not communicating it properly.
Yeah, it's one of those things, but you're not delivering value. Okay? And again, if you look back at the principles behind Lean and behind Agile, you have to deliver value. Okay? That value may be excitement, it may be, the risk of life and limb, it may be I've got a product that does something better than something else, but you have to deliver that value. The delivery failure could be a lot of different things. You may not have the right product. You may have a great product, but you don't know how to sell it or market it. There's a lot of different reasons why these things don't work. But the bottom line is you have to be able to deliver a product and actually get people to use it. That answer your question? Okay. Yes.
Another thing I like to say about that is most of the time when you can't give out the value to somebody, it's because you're not a product of the product yet. So you yourself haven't even bought into the product. And that's some of the things that I deal with my associates. Is that one thing is focus, right? I like how you said focus. And what specifically do you want to focus on? You want to be result driven. You can't have, at the start of me, it's one of the crucial times where you have to be focused, you have to focus. You have to know what you need, know what you want, and know what it is that you're looking for. So one of my things my mentor says is that if you're not a product of the product, then how do you expect to sell it to somebody if you don't believe in what you have?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And same that also applies to if you want to show value to somebody, because most of the time, if someone gives you excuses, somebody's going to find an excuse no matter what. If they're looking for an excuse, they'll find it. So most of the things, if you can't give them value for what it is, then they're never going to make the time for it, because the fact is people make time for what they really want. That's the fact. So the biggest thing is you have to give out value to your friend per se. You build up a startup, you have to give the value of this product or whatever it is that you're starting to build or sell. So they make the time in order to actually see it, it's intriguing to them, correct?
Yes.
So that's another thing that I've learned over time from my associates, that they have to be bought into the product, they have to know what they want, to be very result driven, and give value to the people they're trying to sell to or build whatever is the idea.
That's right. Everything's based on delivering value.
Correct.
Question?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do people judge interest by, are they now doing crowdsourcing, crowdfunding to actually see if there's interest in the product before fully engaging in it?
Yeah.
The business plan, is that how they're doing it these days?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely one mechanism. You also heard of, pitch events where you get in front of, VCs, angel investors, and you do these pitches. These are all ways that you can gauge interest in a product, whether or not somebody wants it. You can sit there and talk to your friends. What's important is that you're getting some feedback. And again, this is that cycle. I build something, and in this case, I'm building an idea. It may be a pitch deck. It may be, it may be a Kickstarter page. But I'm building an idea. I'm putting it in front of other people. I'm measuring the response, and I'm learning what I need to do if I want to be in that business or if I want to deliver that thing. So it's all part of that cyclical process.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, you're running it by the target audience you're going after, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
if I'm doing business to business stuff, and then I got my buddies interested, then I got to be interested. You know?
exactly. How many of you have ever heard of the term an echo chamber? Okay, you've heard of it? Okay, an echo chamber is you go into a room and whatever you say is reflected back at you. If it's a particularly well-constructed echo chamber, it can be quite loud when it comes back to you because it's hitting from multiple surfaces and bouncing back, so you're really getting a good reflection of what you're putting out there. Unfortunately, echo chambers are horrible places to test out business ideas. Why?
It's the only feedback you're getting is your own.
Exactly. The only feedback you're getting is your own. You're hearing what you think is needed, what is exciting and necessary. You need to get in the real world. You need to get away from people that are going to tell you what you want to hear, and they're going to tell you what they really think. Okay? There's a picture, I was going to include it in the earlier list of things talking about the different methodologies. And basically, it was one of these memes that go around, with Fry from, what is that, the
Futurama.
Futurama, thank you, yeah. And it basically shows him sitting here wondering, do I have a good validated business idea, or are my friends just telling me what I want to know? So it's really an important question.
I think that's where the concept of the MVP from Clean Startup comes from, the minimum viable product. So to get something out there as quickly as possible to see if you can gauge the market,
Right.
what they like, what they don't like, and then just start calibrating from there.
Exactly. And be very careful about how you define product. Because I know way too many people in the business, again, I see this as mentoring a lot of times, where they have to go and then put a lot of money, time, and effort into building the first product, okay? Software guy, what is a software guy gonna do when he's trying to start a new idea? He's gonna start writing software, right? Do you need to write a bunch of software to validate a business idea? No, you don't. And that's a trap that people fall into. They have expertise or skill in an area, so they start applying it because they think they need to get to a certain minimum point where they can show a product. It has to be real enough. Truth of the matter is that there's a lot of businesses that started on, basically a handcrafted web page and people talking to other people.
So to that same point, in the medical device world, there's a concept called the 110-100 rule. And in terms of building an MVP and vetting it, especially in the software world, there's so many requirements that drive the framework and the language and how you're building the software that we say, to build something and then come back and make a fix to it, it'll cost you $1 in the design phase, it'll cost you $10 in the manufacturing phase, and it's going to cost you $100 in the commercialization phase.
Right.
And so it really does go to point like, validate that it's actually a good idea, because just the fact that it's a good idea and you build something doesn't mean it's going to scale the right way when you actually bring it to market.
Right. If you're looking for what I consider to be the best information about validating a product idea, there's a gentleman out there, and his name is Jeff Patton. He's a local guy. And just full disclosure, he's a friend of mine. But he wrote a book called Story Mapping. And it is probably one of the best books I've seen on setting an established process for determining what the product actually wants, what is actually needed in a product. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. It took him 10 years to write that book, so we gave him a lot of crap for that because it took him 10 years to write the book. But the ideas are really hard to distill. But it really is ultimately about what do I need to do to get a minimum viable test in front of a customer, a potential customer.
What's the name of that book again?
It's called Story Mapping. Yep.
Jeff Patton.
Jeff Patton is his name. Okay, any other questions?
Is there like a lean startup boot camp or anything that you recommend?
Not a specific one. They're all over the place. If you go out there and do like half a Google search, you'll get hit over the head with all kinds of them. Okay. So it's really easy to find it. The local incubators, if you're looking for something like that to get in and immerse yourself, are good for that. Boom Startup. They've got the Iron. There's an Iron Yard here in Utah now, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Entrepreneur Lunch Paris, so does regularly conference about the lean startup model.
Yes.
The 6 section.
Yeah. I'm actually working with a startup of my own right now in addition to the day job, so I'm a little less connected with the local community. But Salt Lake Circle group itself, there's always somebody that knows somebody. So you can put it out to the group as well and say, hey, what are we hearing about to learn about these things? Okay, and you know, one of these days I can probably talk to Joel and see if we want to do a, you know, just a quick one day or, you know, a couple hours on what is, you know, let's dive into the details of what lean startup is, so we can actually see it in action. I can do a, you know, short process manager on that, test it out.
So, but is that one you would recommend over the different startup trainings?
No, it depends on what you're trying to, you know, trying to accomplish. If you're doing a startup, it's a good framework. So I recommend that if you're in the startup world. But I would recommend more strongly that you find yourself a good incubator, because that's going to give you all the support you need rather than just information about a process. And it's really the interactions with people that are going to give you the experience that you need. If you're talking about other things, talking about established business, talking about software development, I'm going to give you a different answer for every single one of those, because, you know, there's no one size fits all. But again, the information is out there. It's not hard to find. If you say, I'm interested in doing a startup, where can I find an incubator, where I can find some information on lean startup?
I'd like to share a quick story regarding focus that had a huge impact on me. A CEO from a Fortune 100 company came to Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine, and said, hey, I know you know Richard Branson, can you put me in front of him? We want to pay him $100,000 to come down to our facility and do a speech for 1 hour. Darren said, well, I normally don't do that, but for you, I'll go ahead and do that. So he calls Richard's office, his right-hand man, asks, the answer is no immediately. No checking calendars, no checking with Richard, just no.
Right.
And he was like, oh, that's interesting. So he goes back to the CEO. The answer is no. Why? That's it. The answer is no. Right. So look, tell him I'll pay him $250,000. He goes back. The answer is no immediately. Darren's even sort of, well, that's sort of interesting. So he goes back. The answer is no. The guy said, look, tell him name his price. I'll have a private jet, pick him up. He's in and out of here in under an hour. Name his price. I want him that bad. Calls him back. The answer is no. I mean, immediately, no questions asked, no calendar checking, nothing.
Right.
So later on, he was able to talk to Richard, and he said, what's that all about? He said, look, I work my days by 3 strategic priorities each day. No matter what it is outside of those 3 strategic priorities, the answer is no. Even if you were to have paid me $1 billion for that hour, the answer is no. And that was the study of extremely high achievers and being able to get an astronomical amount of stuff done within a very, very focused parameter.
Right.
I just thought that was very impactful.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
I think daily goals are definitely something very important.
Yes.
You definitely want to set, I mean, there is like weekly goals, long-term goals and stuff. I think daily goals is something you really want to key in on. If you're not winning every day, what my mentor said is that you're falling back, basically.
Right.
And then for business startups, I think the most important thing is you want to associate yourself with people that are better than you. And then you want to build a network, because I mean, the network, I personally believe that you can build anything. Yep. It's not about who you know, it's about who they know at one point, you know. So I mean, definitely, especially at a build-up, it's one of the crucial times where you have to have the right mentality and the right support group. So I mean, associate yourself with people that are better than you and people that have the same vision, if not mindset. Because that way, you can't really be associated. I mean, that's how I kind of deal with things. I had a lot of friends that they didn't really have a vision of more. They didn't really have a vision of positive, or a mentality of positive thinking and result focus, right?
Right.
So I mean, at one time it was super lonely to where I had to like cut all them off. And eventually it gets to the point where like now you have new friends and you have people that are better than you as well. So you have a lot of mentors. So I'd also say if you're in a startup right now, I'd say find a mentor. And if you don't know anybody that is better than you, then I'd go out. You know, when you see somebody that looks like that they're better than you, have more quite successful than you, then go talk to them. You know, because eventually you want to find a common interest, build friendships.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most hardest things people do is that they're just not willing to come into their comfort zone and build those friendships.
Right. So you notice we're starting to get into the area of success factors. What are the things you need to do in order to be successful with any methodology, any process of developing business value? Focus is one. Having a network is another one. Another one that doesn't always appear to people, but I'm going to throw it on there as one of the most important ones, is reflection. At certain periods, and it has to be relatively frequent, you need to stop, take a step back from what you're doing, and go, is what I'm doing effective? Is there something I can be doing differently or better? Okay? That reflective improvement, that's, you know, that learning, if you will, from the lean startup world, or that reflection from the Agile world, you don't do that, you're going to keep doing the same things. You can be as focused as you want. You can have the best network, but you're really not going to learn anything. You're not going to get better. Okay? It's the reflection, it's that learning part that changes things. That's what makes you, you know, pivot in the lean startup world, to the right idea, or realize that you don't have an idea. It needs to go away. That's a valid outcome too.
You've got to have those goals in your planning. So as you plan.
Let's take a step back from that. So when we use the term planning, I want to be careful about that one because you can easily, there's a term called analysis paralysis. How many have heard of that? Okay. You can be so focused on planning and get so detailed that you never actually get to doing the things on plan. Okay. How many of you have ever seen a Gantt chart? If that Gantt chart is over 3 months old and it's not commercial construction of a building or a freeway, it's wrong. Okay. It's been proven time and time again that you cannot predict that far out and have any high degree of accuracy, especially when it gets to business or software, because things change so quickly. So you need to be able to adapt, and that's where that learn, that's where that reflect comes into play. That's where you do that adapting in the process. Okay. One last, if there's any other questions, and then we'll wrap it up for today.
What's the name of that chart real quick? GAM?
The chart, if you forget about the name, it's not important. Just avoid it. It's called a Gantt chart.
Gas?
Gantt. G-A-N-T-T. Yeah, whatever you do, if you're ever required to make a Gantt chart, just run away fast.
That's an important principle. Let me make sure I understand that. So like, you can't predict, you're saying you can't predict out or plan out more than 90 days kind of concept?
Yes.
That's what Agile is.
In the 50s, you could.
So every 90 days you got a new plan?
That's what I'm saying. I want to find a really gnarly one. These are all two. Here, that's
there you go.
Look at that. Okay.
Pearson would develop Gantt charts that would have, I saw one that was over 10,000 lines. That's just nuts.
Okay, so the actual detail on this one isn't important. What you see is you see a lot of timelines and a lot of dependencies and a lot of interrelations between things. Okay? What happens is if any one of the ones here are wrong, what happens to everything else downstream?
Everything's broken.
Wrong. Okay? If you have high estimation accuracy in your field, if you have the ability to predict with a high degree of certainty that something's going to take X amount of time to do, great. It works well for construction because these are pretty known quantities for how long it's going to take things. It works well for like basic manufacturing, things that don't have a lot of variable inputs. General business is highly fluctuates depending on circumstances. Software development, same thing, because we're basically building tools for general business. Okay, so these things are going to fluctuate. One of the most common conversations I have in software development is, how do I get better at estimating how long it's going to take me to build something? And my answer to that has been the same for the last 10 years. It is, don't get better at that. There's no value to it because you're always going to be wrong. Instead, get better at delivering more quickly so you have predictability from past results, not from trying to figure out what you're going to do 6 months from now. Okay? It's better to predict your throughput than it is to predict what you're going to do based upon too many variables leading up to a certain event of time. Okay? That's why I'm down on Gantt charts. Okay? I've never seen one that's effective outside of the construction industry.
Yeah, it's a good point. Manufacturing, these work really well, but I always say in the startup world, if somebody asks me for a business plan, I say no, because you can't plan the unknown. There's so many just factors here that you just can't tell how long something's going to take, or if this event depends on this event to occur.
Right.
So I totally agree. They're great in medical device world, but not in software.
I agree with that, but there's also some things that you have to do as a startup.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know those, if you don't track those and make sure it gets done, who's going to be in charge of growing our social media? Oh shoot, we didn't think about that.
Absolutely.
You have to have at least, the points are all well taken about requirements, but you have to have at least an idea of where you're headed.
There's my response to that. So there's actually a lot of truth to that. The plans are useless. Because as soon as in this case, it's talking about battle plans, and the terminology, the quote I hear most often from that is, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. Because the enemy is not going to go along with your plans, right? Unless they're really, really bad at war. But the planning process is indispensable. What does the planning process do for you?
As you think of all the different things that could happen and transpire.
You're thinking of the variables, you're thinking about what could happen, you're also communicating, okay? And it's the interactions that make the difference. Interactions allow you to respond. There's a term out there called cognitive space, or shared cognition. Okay, we're getting really deep, and I apologize going here, but I'm just gonna leave this last thought with you. If you're working in a team, the goal you want to achieve is something called shared cognition. And that means that you're all thinking of the problem in the same way. That means that you don't have a bottleneck of, I gotta go talk to Joe because he's the only one that knows how to respond to this set of circumstances. Okay, you should be able to channel Joe. You should be able to see what Joe is seeing at the same time and respond to that. One of the most acute examples of this is the cockpit of an airplane when there's an emergency going on. How many of you ever heard like cockpit recordings when they're dealing with an emergency? Okay, that is the peak of either shared cognition. They're all addressing the problem, okay, as quickly as possible and responding to the same circumstances, or they're failing and it's going to go badly. I've heard both recordings, and the ones where it's failing, it's pretty chilling. Okay, the other ones where they saved at least some lives, it's pretty impressive at how well they work together. But they had to be working together as a team. Okay, you don't get to share cognition by working in separate cubicles or not spending a bunch of time together. It's just it's part of the team concept. Okay, and at that, we'll wrap up for the day. I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it.